we're going to welcome everybody to the Independent Investor Channel. We have a very special treat here. We have Ian Graham from Oroco Resource Corp. He is the president director at Oroco, and he's been kind enough to take his time and really give some of the recent updates and exciting news surrounding this company. And just before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. I want the audience to fully understand I am a share owner in this company. Oroco is a company that I have had on my watch list for a long, long time. And I've always been intrigued at the resource and the property that these guys sport. And the history has been something that I have monitored. So I want to invite all investors that are making their way to this message to heed the disclaimers. I actually convey my share count. I am a bullish share owner in Oroco. We will be engaging in some future discussions about where we think that this asset could go. So please, I want to encourage each and every investor to do their own due diligence when it comes to this opportunity and all opportunities out there, and review those disclaimers for yourself. And our goal here is to educate, not to compel people to buy stock, but to educate. And at the end of this 30 minutes, I think you're going to find here that Oroco is really set up for a pretty amazing back half of 2025, as they have got some amazing announcements to make, and Ian is going to shed some light and provide some color over those most recent developments. So Ian, our heartfelt welcome to the Independent Investor Channel. If you just take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience and let them know what you do, and you can kind of kick it off with some of the recent developments with Oroco. Ian?
Certainly, Ryan. Well, thank you very much for having me on. Bit of background. I'm the president of Oroco. I'm a geologist by background and training, and started my career in some of the major companies, Anglo American, Rio Tinto. But I've been in the junior sector for over a decade now, and really exciting because we're able to bring along projects and bring them into the development sequence, which is a lot of fun, as you suggest, Ryan. In terms of Oroco, we have this project which you have described in some detail, and we brought that through sort of since the commencement of COVID, through a series of drilling and into a PEA that was published in the third quarter last year. And that technical work has put in place and made clear the technical opportunity and the build opportunity for the project. But as you've suggested, we encountered some headwinds in 2024. And these were fundamentally a perception that the Mexican permitting regime was challenged, particularly for mining projects that were open pit in type and scale. So our project, Santo Tomas, is an open pit development. And so we found ourselves in an environment with a certain amount of investor caution arising around the prospects of our advancing this project. So, however, we're thrilled to, have seen a fundamental pivot in that situation, essentially in the last month. And, basically we've gone from a perception that under the last president, there was a certain amount of resistance to open pit development, to the new incumbent president and her administration here in Mexico, which has very definitely expressed a very strong desire to see foreign direct investment in Mexico. And the administration has put in place some remarkable people, and we've been fortunate to meet with the likes of the Undersecretary of the Economy responsible for foreign direct investment, and together with representation from Sinaloa, so a congressman and former senator at the federal level, but from Sinaloa, Mario Zamora, and you have played a clip of one of his interviews, have sort of endorsed the project on the basis of our community record in particular, and also our environmental record, although we're an exploration initiative, so the environmental impact is low in any case. But they've been particularly focused on our community approach here. Having been part of the community with my wife for 2 years through COVID, where we very much liked the community. We were made welcome despite my very challenged Spanish, and just became part of the fabric here, and it was a wonderful experience. And as a result, we've got this endorsement politically and an assurance that we will be supported as we take the project forward. So, advancing the project will be done in accordance with the usual steps of development. There's nothing in the new environment that will change the steps, and we will take those in sequence. But we're thrilled to be able to, really, in a sense, restart with the vigor that we want to bring to the project. And we're right away beginning with things like baseline surveys on the environment with a view to expediting the project. So I'm back down at the project at the moment. I'm speaking to you from Choiks, and just super excited to be back here with the ability to, re-engage the team and get cracking with the project.
Yeah, I think, Ian, when you allude to that time, I was covering the company, and it was a kind of a disappointment on a couple different fronts. I knew that the Santo Tomas project was absolutely attractive, and we're going to talk a little bit about more of how the attributes of that project really set itself apart, even on the global stage, but especially in the Americas. But, for me, when I looked at the investment during that time where I felt like we had a little bit of political headwind with the stock did sell off, and any would-be investor or any follower of the company could see that activity, to see that digression a little bit. And that uncertainty, I think, was a big reason why I think a lot of people, investors, kind of put it at bay. And they said, hold on a second, we've got to put this thing in a box here. And the exciting part about it is that is a kind of a thing to acknowledge now, Ian. I think you'll agree, but it is absolutely a thing of the past. And I don't want my viewers to take it from me. I'd like to encourage you to look at the activity actually in the stock, in the face of financial markets that have been absolutely incredibly volatile over the last month or so, especially with the tariff talk. Oroco has held in quite nicely, was up nicely today, settled out at around 30 cents, and 30 cents USD is where I'm domiciled here in New York. So all figures are in New York, but I do want to take a moment to invite our investors to ORRCOResourcecorp.com. Please kick over there and check out their investor slide deck. It has all of the amplifying information, so you can gain more technical color on what Ian is going to talk about here with the Santo Tomas project, but also to invite you guys to the OTC Quality Board markets here in the U.S., ORRCF, the ticker symbol, as well as the TSX Venture Exchange for our Canadian investors, OCO.V. Okay. So I do acknowledge that. I really feel like listening to the interview with Mr. Zamora, I think that really did kind of shed a lot of color on the positive acknowledgement on multiple fronts, what it could mean for the copper market, what it could mean for you guys, and what it could mean for the local municipality. So I'd like to shift a little bit and talk specifically about the Santo Tomas project. Ian, if you could, go ahead and dive into some technical details as to why some of the highlights on this thing should really get investors' attention. The over 22 years life of the mine, the resource that you guys are looking at, and some of the plans that you guys have to kind of solidify that asset to maybe make it showcase a little bit more for your potential eventual sale. Ian?
Certainly. Thanks, Ryan. So, we have a very large resource. The resource is currently classified in two categories: the indicated resource and an inferred resource. Together, and we shouldn't report them together, generally speaking, there are 8.5 billion pounds of copper in the ground. And we've put and currently 4.5 billion pounds of that copper equivalent resource is in the indicated category. So the other 4 billion, a shave over 4 billion pounds of copper, are in the inferred category. And the inferred category is insufficient to support a resource statement and any sort of reserve work that would allow us to report them together, etc. However, in the PEA, we put together a notional project that will extract essentially 5.5 billion pounds of that copper equivalent. So 90% of that material that will be sold will be copper in concentrate, and the balance of the value is molybdenum, gold, and silver. So fairly straightforward metallurgy, which helps with things like capital and certainly some of the certainty of recoveries, etc. So 5.5 billion pounds of copper equivalent produced over, as you said, Ryan, 22 odd years. And we need to spend $1.1 billion in initial capex to build it, as defined, the plan as we defined it in the PEA. And then there'll be some expansion capital, but that comes after payback of the initial capital. And so we see this project as a very competitive capex project in terms of the returns we get on that capex. In the Americas, our CEO, Richard Locke, an mining engineer, a guy with a record of delivering projects on time, on budget, in the mining sector, gas sector. He is an engineer's engineer, and in Richard's view, Santo Tomas is the most buildable of the open pit, large porphyry-style copper deposits in the Americas. And if he thinks it, I tend to think it. We got to work together in the past on a couple of companies, and originally at Rio Tinto, on the Diavik Diamond Mine in the Northwest Territories, and subsequently on some other projects where significant value was created and operations ultimately established. So, I think that's a really strong situation to have brought the company to now. With these changing tailwinds, I think we can, essentially get our chins up again, focus on the future, and get back to work. Project compares very well with other large development copper projects. We are not the largest of the deposits that are sitting in the hopper, but what we think is we have one of the more enviable location situations. We're on rail, road, natural gas coming down from the Permian Basin in Texas, underutilized gas facility that goes right by the project, and we're close to a deep water port that is underutilized, a free port here on the west coast of Mexico at Topolobampo. So we just, we think the sort of the confluence of our location, the ready access, the fact that we're at low elevation, we're a drive up project. You can drive to the project in a Toyota Corolla, and just that very, very strong and readily, it's easy to calibrate the work that needs to be done on the project. And I think we've been appropriately conservative insofar as the project as designed does not take all of the in situ resource. We're essentially taking about, approaching 70% of it, and we're not impacting things like the adjacent river or any of those things that might require more advanced engineering solutions. So we've kept it simple. We haven't sort of reached for the stars. And I think what we've put together is a very believable and strong project solution.
Dale, and I think it's worth mentioning to the investors out there, and I've told you this too, Ian, on our first meeting. I've covered the junior mining space for the last many years, many companies with different personalities, and it could be something simple as a tribal conflict, right, that can get in your way, that can put mining to a halt. And I think, speaking a little bit about the jurisdiction in Mexico, not only being favorable to your project, but also what it could mean for the local municipality there, is also something that Mr. Zamora talked about, as being a net positive, for the people there, direct hundreds of jobs and maybe indirectly, thousands of jobs. You want to speak a little bit about that? Because that's a big deal. I mean, if you don't get accepted by the locality, it's a showstopper. And you guys not only have that, but you also have, the positive. I think the Mexican government wants to see this happen. At least that's my insight.
I think they do. And Mr. Zamora's passion for the people of northern Sinaloa, which is where he's from Los Mochis, is palpable when you meet with him and speak to him. And I first met with him probably 30 months ago in a nearby town, El Fuerte, and he certainly cares about the people in his under his care. So that's been a focus for him. And upon a build, if one were to build Santo Tomas, in a manner akin to what we have laid out in the PEA, we would more than double the number of full-time equivalent salaried jobs that are available in the municipality of Choix. And of course, there would be, knock-on employment and other full-time, part-time, etc. opportunities. And so, definitely that would be a big impact. Goldcorp operated a gold mine about 20 kilometers east of where Santo Tomas is, historically, for about a decade. And a number of the people in Choix worked there. Some of the ladies at the gas station where we fill our pickups and get the diesel for the drills, etc., worked at El Sosal. And they, in good humor, constantly tease myself and Don Ubaldo when we're there about how slow we've been in regenerating their truck driving jobs and getting this thing going. And so whilst it's all done in good humor, it really does underpin a desire in the community to see us advance and to do it as expeditiously as we can.
Well, I look at it as a positive attribute amongst many for your current timing, Ian. I really do. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk about copper specifically.
Sure.
The demand on copper, with the multitude of things that are going on right now, there's a significant amount of reason as to why copper is in high demand right now. And I just want to read some of my notes here because this is fascinating. And all of this sets you guys up to really kind of lend yourself and this project to the copper market. In 2022, 300 billion expected to grow to 500 billion. So almost a double from when that study was put out in 2022 to 2032 to 500 billion pounds of copper demand. The clean energy revolution we know is going on with the EVs and the infrastructure. My brother is an electrician, so something I can speak specifically to is the infrastructure build out and the upgrading. Copper is the lifeblood of that, and in some cases they're calling it the new oil. And it really is. It's an absolute necessity. Surplus is shrinking, which is lending itself to the demand. The lower rates of discovery globally, the historic low copper mines that exist, the underinvestment in growth, which kind of speaks to coming out of this dark period, I think, in some form for Oroco directly. The declining grades and deeper deposits, which add to CapEx to actually get to those deposits. And then finally, something to touch on home is the prolonged permit process, as every jurisdiction has their own pedigree of challenges that you have to work through. Can you please just give us your insight on the copper as it relates to the demand now, and how we're kind of facing a little bit of a perfect storm here where the demand is going to absolutely outpace the supply that we've got?
Certainly, Ryan. For me, it's I just agree with what you've laid out. I think the future of copper, the short, intermediate, and longer term future of copper as a commodity, I think, is strong. In fact, as an exploration and development geologist, my calling is pretty simple, right? Is to develop raw materials to feed into the global markets and commodities. And to be honest, it's somewhat above my pay grade to understand the details of all that. I have a pretty simple calling, but I do believe that we need to bring more on, and as much copper as possible as a sector. And Richard and I are just pleased, and the board at Oroco and the team as a whole are pleased to hopefully be part of that solution. Bring this copper forward. One of the projects Richard and I have in common in the past is the Resolution Copper Project in Arizona. It belongs to BHP and Rio Tinto, two of the large mining giants, and it is a magnificent resource, but it's 1,600 meters below surface, and the temperatures there, and excuse me that I can't convert to Fahrenheit right away, but it's over 80 degrees centigrade at the ore body at Resolution. So it will be a splendid operation. It's planned to bring 400,000 to 500,000 ton a year to market one day. But between now and then, Santo Tomas stands ready to answer the call for over 100,000 tons of copper a year. And it can be built quickly, within under 2 years. It can be expanded, and there's a significant amount of potential adjacent to Santo Tomas that we have shown is there, but we have not put in the resource statement. And so I think there's an enormous amount of upside, and to the extent we can help with the global flows of copper, we want to be part of it. It's an exciting story, and yes, the uses of copper go way beyond my comprehension. Even it's a wonderful commodity, absolutely, and it's a real privilege actually to be part of the copper story.
That's beautiful. If you could just kind of give us a little bit of an idea via a roadmap for Oroco going forward in the short to medium term. Okay, you mentioned the environmental acknowledgement as part of the grander permitting process. Some additional drilling that we had talked about to kind of round out the edges, I think, on the south slope, I believe you were speaking about, that's part of phase 2. Give us a little bit about what you expect to see kind of going forward a little bit. Nobody's a fortune teller, and I hate to put you on the spot here, but as an investor, I would like to see a march toward an end. And that end for me is to achieve permitting status. Okay. Now, we don't want to forecast one thing or another standing, but we all know that that is a goalpost that we've set in the future for Oroco. If that happens, that's a game changer for the company and you guys. Okay. But is there anything else that you can kind of discuss that you guys have earmarked in the short to medium term to maybe lend itself to rounding out the attributes, and again, showcasing what Oroco has to a would-be suitor down the line?
Well, unfortunately, I risk restating all the things you've said very briefly. So at the risk of doing just that, yes, we want to put the environmental work on track. We need to do some geotechnical work, a little bit of drilling around things like hydrology and slope stabilities for a pit. So we'll do some of that here in phase 2. We absolutely need to focus on upgrading the South Zone resource. And we are going to do a little bit of drilling around just outside the existing pit to potentially expand it. We're fairly confident there's some mineralization to the southwest of the PEA pit, perhaps some to the southeast. And we definitely have an opportunity between the two pits. There's a sort of saddle in there, and we know there's some copper there. And what that really does, even if it's only a modest expansion of the resource, it will change the mining cost. It will bring it down if we don't have trucks coming over that saddle. So there's all sorts of little opportunities to take and to get us ready for a PFS that hopefully has a larger resource in it, a slightly lower mining cost, but most importantly, that we can put that more robust study together and have that sort of higher classification resource and ultimately a reserve that would allow us to call what we have a mineral reserve and to reference our ore body as an ore. And so that de-risks the project beyond where we are today fairly significantly. And I think you're right, Ryan. What that really then does is open Santo Tomas up to actually a variety of potential futures that would ensure its development. And that's where we want to get to. And I think you're right. I think one of the very significant sort of hurdles or markers in that progress would be ultimately defined by a permit to develop Santo Tomas. So yeah, I'm a bit of a dreamer. I dream of that day, but I honestly think we now have a very clear roadmap that can bring us to that point, and hurry forward the day.
Well, I think if nothing else, it's going to be the seal on any lingering uncertainty with with coming out of the era that we just left. That will answer any of those questions, and being a share owner in the company, that will certainly answer that for me. Yeah. But I really want people to take home what you have said. I want them to find their way to your guys' resource. I found it very informative. So again, invite the investors over to ORRCO.com. Fantastic investor presentation. Really showcased what Ian is talking about here from one of the top guys. We're very lucky to have you. And the investors are doubly lucky to hear from you, Ian, because sometimes you read through these technical things and it's hard to understand how Oroco stands out amongst the crowd. But I just want to simplify it for the investors from my lens. I looked at a 30-cent stock as it traded today. Now, Oroco went all the way down to, I believe, 15 cents US. It's doubled off of those levels. So we've got a little bit of churn in the market, again, in the face of some serious volatility. So to make that noise as a microcap junior mining company, there is something happening there. And the grander stock market is recognizing that. And then you have an asset over here that has never changed. It's never changed through the tailwind, and it's never changed through the headwind. And here we are, if we can look at the disconnect between a stock that is, and a company that's undervalued, and the resource that you sat in. I mean, you just talked about the resource that you guys feel like you're sitting on, and the value disconnect between that stock and the asset. I think investors are going to be excited at the opportunity here. But I do want to give you the last word, Ian, and I do want to thank you for taking the time to shed some light on some of these. It's a very unique project. The company has no debt. You guys are sitting on a massive deposit, over a 22-year projected project. And you're looking to sell the asset eventually to a would-be suitor that's going to come in and develop the property. So there's no confusion about what you guys are looking to do here. But I do want to thank you on behalf of the channel here and turn it over to you for the last word, Ian.
I'll try and keep it brief. I think you've encapsulated where we find ourselves. And we do think that the ultimate transaction in terms of that sort of crystallization of value could be done in a variety of ways. And so given our collective experience in the sector, we'll be open to ensuring that monetization of the value at the appropriate time. But we will be open to doing it in several ways and to do it creatively for shareholders. All of us involved in the company are shareholders in the company, and certainly some of us are actually fairly perhaps overexposed to Oroco in terms of the gearing. So you know, we all look forward to seeing that value crystallized, and we do really genuinely appreciate our investors and the newer investors perhaps that you might be bringing, Ryan. You know, if I could invite them just to go to our YouTube and do watch the annual gratitude to shareholder videos that the crew here at site, the young geologists and core cutters and the people who work here, the drillers, make each year to express their gratitude to shareholders for the support we receive, including the support we saw through this period of the headwinds. So yes, thank you to you all, and thank you, Ryan, as a shareholder, for giving us this opportunity today.
Very good, Ian. Thank you so much, and we'll be standing by for further developments. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.